God, you realize it, it's fucking built in.
If you don't mind repeating, Ken, for the sake of the audience, right? Um, you're saying for something to exist, it means it already inherently has a form of identity.
Something can only exist if it has an identity. For example, a car. If 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 you go in like a automotive company that build cars, right?
Mm-hmm.
A car has an identity. The identity of the car is made up of all the various components organized and integrated into a functional unit. That is the identity of the car.
Mm-hmm.
If you separate anytime you separate the components, there's no car. It affected the when when you go in a factory on the assembly line, everything all over the place,
Mm-hmm.
compartments, right? Wheels here, fenders here, steering wheel there. It's only when you integrate them, you create an identity or you create a unit that can do things that none of the individual components can do.
Right.
That basic principle with the car applies to everything that exists. So therefore, God will be created as an identity,
Mm-hmm.
that which makes it exist, which is energy, awareness, consciousness, creativity, and all that. The word God only has meaning to the ignorant. It is used to refer to what they don't know. For example, a man would say, a man would ask the question, who or what created the world? And somebody would answer the word God. The word God doesn't explain a fucking thing. It's just a word. But they see for the intellect, words are things. Words are like objects.
Mm-hmm.
Once you label something, it becomes an entity or an existential within this sphere of thinking.
Mm.
Observe the fact that once something doesn't have a name, it doesn't exist for you, which means that the existence of things for you need words, it need a label, a way in consciousness can't grasp nothing unless it is verbalized. That is subhuman standard on which man is living today. Language was never necessary because language is meant to communicate energy, but energy in and of itself doesn't need language. Thought doesn't need language.
Mm.
If it were possible for me to pick up your thoughts, then you wouldn't have to speak to me, and then I would know exactly what you have in mind. Because language came on the scene as a reflection of a weakness or a descent of man, right? But it also opened the possibility of hypocrisy and deceit and dishonesty. A man could use words and smile, but that is not really going over the man at all,
Mm.
right? It's like how in relationship people deceive him, right? People get him on left, right, and center. Because you tell somebody you love them, and they feel, from the time you use the word, that the actual reality obtains. You
So saying um, thought don't necessarily need language to form communication. If so, if
When I say thought,
mm,
right,
oh,
telepathy,
telepathy,
which is the ability to pick up someone's thoughts
right?
without words, right,
Oh,
is
just
a built-in power that we have.
so
As a matter of fact, it's because we lost our power, language became emphasized as a substitute. But language, by its very nature, is deceptive or promotes dishonesty because words have no inherent meaning. The meaning of words is determined by the particular cultural significance. And the proof of that is that the meaning of words have evolved over time.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So um, a question I wanna ask you. But I lost the train of thought. But Chris, I wanna ask you. Yeah. Like if I remember you saying you were making the comparison with different languages, right? And words written on a paper, and you were saying that is your consciousness gives the words
Meaning?
their meaning, and that there's no words on the paper, right? Or we don't really speak words. We speak on something.
On a paper, all you can do is write bending lines that they also call characters. Right? It is your mind that transforms the bending lines into words. Like the learning of a language. Right? Any language you don't know, if you see a book written in that language, when you open it, you would see the only thing that could be put on a page, bending lines or characters. When you learn to transform the characters into the culturally agreed upon meaning, you stop seeing characters, you now see words. So where are the words? In you on the page.
In you.
Yeah. And it becomes like you're seeing a self-reflection.
The power of the mind, right?
You see, psychologically, the human world is two-dimensional, right? Conscious and subconscious. Now, the value of the subconscious is it saves you having to learn something over and over and over again. The value of memory then.
Right.
In other words, you learn a skill, the subconscious comes and take over that, freeing attention to learn more skills. The benefit of the subconscious is it makes things easy. Right?
I don't mean to cut you, right? But that all that points, as you said before, to the power of the mind, the power of let's say the power of the mind or power of consciousness, right? So you could parallel it as you did before in previous discussions we had, right? You see, is the same way we give meaning to bending lines or characters on a page or symbols on a page, is the same way we give meaning to the objects we see in the world, right? It's consciousness, like given the objects in the world, the same way we learn to read the world. Think you could expound on that a bit? Or?
Recognition and familiarity, which gives us the sense of security about, like right now you feel comfortable and a certain sense of security sitting here in this library. There are people, if you know, like in Star Trek, beam up Scotty. If you were to beam somebody who has never been here before, and they were to land here and just become aware of here, it will create a certain level of anxiety for them because they don't know what to they don't know that that's going on and they don't know the person in the backyard and I call them. But to come in here over a certain time, you have observed a certain consistency in terms of the relational possibilities that here facilitate or support. So you could afford to come here and relax. Nobody can come in and stab me. You know what I mean? So memory is important, but what has happened is that memory, sometimes we become too dependent on memory, and intuition is compromised. Intuition is knowledge and insight from the deeper us. There's more to everybody than they know. This deeper level speak to us and seek our interests. When I say us, speak to the ego, right? Or the secondary identity based on your name, your date of birth, and nationality and all that kind of all that kind of garbage.
Mm.
Right.
Mm.
There's a part of you that knows more than you do.
Mm.
They could call it the higher self. Some call it God. Some call it the higher mind.
Mm.
But the socially developed and internalized structure that operates as mind in us
Mm-hmm.
is really substandard in terms of the requirements of proper human survival. Because it is simply the result of things that were emphasized. So if important things, your particular environment, do not emphasize, then you grow up without them. That's like self-knowledge. The average person don't know itself. The operating with self-image. And the benefits of knowing itself, they cannot partake of. That has been compromised. The, the issue is not so much to develop your mind, but to be yourself.
Just be yourself. Ah. But it's hard to be yourself in a world that constantly, as Ralph Waldo Emerson quoted, it's hard to really be yourself in a world that constantly trying to change you.
And the interesting thing is that being yourself is effortless, We normally associate the average individual, when you let them be yourself, they would normally associate it with wanting to become something or striving to achieve something. In other words, some kind of energetic exertion.
Yeah.
You know? No,
Yeah.
you are already what you are.
Right.
Is what you are and what you have become.
But
what you have become that at the expense of what you are. You know who spoke about this? Um, Castaneda and Don Juan. Don Juan say from the time we are born, right, as little children, we are aware that something is missing. This thing that we are missing is the ability to think. He called it the tonal, right? And he said, we spend so much time and energy developing the tonal that the now are, which is what we are, what we experience ourselves at birth, that recedes to the background. So while you while when you are born you're complete, or let's say you're whole, right? You realize something is missing in order to function socially, so you focus on developing that. And when you develop that,
comes at the expense of
the same thing happens. You're still not whole.
Yeah. So in the act of becoming, you kind of lose yourself.
Yeah. But the self the self doesn't have to be compromised. It is because of the nature of the informational diet. Because there's no emphasis of self.
And then
There's no encouragement to internally explore or to be, become more aware of awareness, that kind of thing.
Yeah. What I realized too, like it's our cultural, like say forces, invisible forces, or you could call it visible or invisible forces that that try to squeeze out your authenticity. And like if you a person try to be themselves in certain cultural spaces, if the dominant culture don't align with it, as I think you used to say that too.
You're ostracized.
Right, you're ostracized, or you're deemed, as you say in your previous session, you're deemed
you
mad,
become,
right?
you become a threat to the system.
Yeah, that's right.
Or they classify you as insane.
Yes. So it's a challenge.
Yeah.
So being yourself is a challenge. Yeah.
And the irony is that the irony is that happiness is aged in equal proportion to the extent to which you are yourself. Are we not?
Yeah.